But this kind of resiliency, when you are dealing with LEO satellites, geo satellites, broadband link, narrow band link, government systems, commercial systems, if we start doing these switchovers, orchestrations manually, then the enemy would already be successful. Because the time we take to call people to change configuration.
From the Defense and Aerospace Report, this is The Downlink, a podcast about the intersection of space, the space business, and defense. Not just what's over the horizon, but what's happening above it. I'm your host, Laura Winter. The U.S. is no longer the only nation with a reusable rocket. Today, that's Friday, July 10th, Chinese state media broadcast a video showing a Long March 10B rocket launch from the Hainan commercial space launch site. Now, about 6 minutes after stage separation, the video shows the booster sticking a vertical landing on a net-rigged platform at sea. And there are two more big pieces of news. Starting closer at home, on Monday, NASA released a draft request for proposals and is asking American companies for input on the next phase of its commercial space station strategy. The agency is hoping to keep a continuous U.S. presence in low Earth orbit once the International Space Station is retired, which may happen in 2030. And on Tuesday, over in Ankara, Turkey, at this week's NATO Summit Defense Industry Forum, 8 allies launched something called HALO, which is an acronym for Hybrid Layered Operations in Space. They seem to have dropped the S, but the idea is to take sovereign nationally owned military satellites belonging to different countries and network them together into one larger, more resilient constellation. The goal is better and resilient high-speed communications, intelligence, and missile tracking. The hope is that this will improve capabilities while lowering costs as compared to having each of the 8 nations operating their own isolated fleet. Which brings me to today's conversation, because stitching together separate communication systems that use radio spectrum, think satellites, think cell phones, and communications for mobile military command posts, now, integrating all of that into one orchestrated network is exactly the problems that my guest spends his days solving. And resilience against jamming, spoofing, data interception, and data corruption, as well as kinetic attacks, is the key requirement. I'm very honored this week to host Rajeev Gopal, Vice President of Advanced Programs for Hughes Defense. Hughes has a number of really interesting contracts with the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, and the Space Force, and it's all about resiliency. Rajeev is a leading authority in merging space-based satellite architectures with ground-based networks, artificial intelligence, and cloud systems. Here's our conversation. Hello, Rajeev. Thank you for joining me here on the Downlink podcast.
Thank you, Laura. Great to be here, and hope you're having a great afternoon. Look forward to this dialogue.
Excellent. So let's set the table for this discussion by first understanding just what you do and where you do it. Rajeev, please tell us a little about what you do at Hughes.
Sure. So again, I'm Rajeev Gopal, and I'm VP of Advanced Programs for Hughes Defense. So the main objective of my job is to take technical solutions, primarily commercial, and make them available so that they can meet secure mission needs, defense needs for the country. So that's the one-line description. So I focus on both engineering, technical aspects, but I also focus on business, how to make sure that people can get these capabilities at the right time, in the right way. And also very important to us, we are a profit-oriented company, but we also believe that a set of commercial technologies, we can truly provide value-added services which are secure and which align very well with our national defense and mission needs.
Thank you so much for that. But here's kind of a question that I hope doesn't sound snarky, because it really isn't meant to be. What is Hughes? This is an honest question, because for me, and possibly for others in my generation, I remember my grandfather proudly telling me about seeing the flight of the spruce goose, right? So the brand name is associated with flight, with some major NASA lunar and interplanetary programs, but this is not what this Hughes is today. Now, as I believe the space part of the business, it was sold in 2000. So could you please demystify what Hughes, an EchoStar company, what does it do?
Sure. That's a great question, Laura. Hughes, we have a very proud name, a strong heritage. Businesses change, products change, but the values, culture, the sense of innovation, that continues. So today, we are primarily in the business of connecting people, things, enterprises. That's how our one-line mission is. And we make sure that we have the right kind of technologies. And some of these technologies are difficult to tame. We are talking about satellite communications. You could have satellites thousands of miles away in the sky. We have to send the signal up. It comes down. So we develop systems, ground systems. We design and operate management systems. So we do both. We do design engineering, create products. We also happen to run the largest geo satcom service. So this combination of service and products, it's great to come back again to our original mission, which is to connect people, things, and enterprises worldwide.
We could really turn that into a fabulous television commercial or radio ad spot. You say that so sweetly. I do wonder though, what is the space heritage? Now, you just mentioned geostationary SATCOM, right? So I don't want people or listeners to think, oh, well, all this stuff was sold, and it was to Boeing, that all of a sudden this stopped. You are an EchoStar company, so that does mean space. So there's, I think, the Jupiters. Yeah. Can you
No,
just give us a taste of what the heritage is in this current construct?
Right. So again, geosatellites, they started the space race. So some of the initial TV broadcasts around the world, they happened because of geosatellites. But that's how we started. So today, Hughes provides connectivity. We happen to provide also ground systems for LEO constellations. We also got involved with 5G network for US Navy. So whatever the technology transport, whether it's geosatellites or LEO satellites or 5G, we make sure that we can provide these connectivity services on top of these transports so that the customer, they have a single point of contact that, hey, we need service in these locations. And then we figure out what is the best way to meet customer specific expectations and requirements. And let me also describe a little bit how we evolve. So we definitely have been part of Hughes for a number of years. A few years ago, we were acquired by EchoStar, and that was a very complementary arrangement. EchoStar, if you look at their background, Dish TV, which is using satellites to broadcast video, that complements comms very well. So Hughes Network Systems, we were in communications, and Dish TV, a big part of EchoStar in TV broadcast. We also happen to be in 5G services. So as EchoStar, we created the country's first 5G, pure 5G based cellular operations. So that combination of 5G, LEO satellites, TV broadcast, GeoSatcom, that's a very unique portfolio worldwide.
So now that we have an understanding of what the company is, let's give everyone listening a baseline understanding of what you concentrate on and what challenges you seek to solve. Because throughout your career, you have been primarily focused on demand, uninterrupted, and fast, what we like to call low latency, wireless transmission of trusted, uncorrupted data to and from space, as well as terrestrially, which pretty much sounds like everything, to be honest with you. But what we know right now, that in the Baltics, in Southeastern Europe, through Central Russia, and in the Middle East, there is a lot of signal jamming and signal spoofing. That's what it means when folks say the communications environment is contested. It's a clean way of saying it's a mess.
Yes.
The jamming can prevent a platoon from communicating with military satellites above and, say, a scout unit 100 meters away. So, over the years, a lot of time, effort, and capital has been invested by taxpayers through Department of Defense budgets and by companies like yours into developing resilient communication systems that cut through that mess. Now, I wonder if you could give the audience a brief primer on just what do you mean by resilient, right? By that word, because a lot of people, organizations, and governments are using the word resilient and its derivatives like resiliency, right? Resilience. They're using it a lot these days. What does this word actually mean in your work?
Yes. Again, a very good question, because we have to be very clear about what these words are, because these words define architectures, implementation, they drive service cost, and they also ultimately decide whether the mission can go through or not. So let me backtrack a little bit. So I spent first half my career in Hughes, mostly on engineering solutions, mostly commercial. So when you are engineering a commercial solution, of course you worry about something would go wrong. Some hardware will break, there'll be some software bug, but you don't worry about intentional damages or threats. So that's the difference between traditional availability or high availability systems and what is needed for mission critical applications is resilient services, resilient systems. So resiliency to me is that you have a set of diverse and redundant resources. So for example, suppose you have 3 satellites and someone is jamming the first satellite. I can use the second one. Suppose someone has another jammer, they jam the second satellite also. I'll use the third one. So that is resiliency, because I'm able to use these diverse, redundant resources. The challenge has been historically that availability, the simple sort of hardware switchover, software switchover, those things were automated. But this kind of resiliency, when you are dealing with LEO satellites, GEO satellites, broadband link, narrowband link, government systems, commercial systems, if we start doing these switchovers, orchestrations manually, then the enemy would already be successful. Because the time we take to call people to change configuration, if it's taking hours and days and months, and historically that's what it used to do.
Months?
And yes, that people say, okay, we have to go to next satellite. Let's see, let's get some business relationship. Let's find out what the parameters are. Let's code those things. Let's get a router engineer. Let's get a radio engineer. Today, resiliency is that all these diverse resources are known to an automated software. It looks at situational awareness. It knows that, okay, someone is trying to jam me. Maybe there is a cyber attack on some link. It can look at what is happening, make decisions, and do the switchover while we figure out what to do with the compromised system. So ultimately, the biggest aspect of resiliency is speed. How fast can I recover from a threat, from an attack? An attack could again be jamming. It could be physical destruction. It could be cyber attack. It could be business relationship. Enemy has bought the service provider and they have stopped services from being offered in a service. So all those things can be mitigated in a very fast way if we can do it quickly. And this is beyond human speed. Good software, which has been tuned to detect these threats and react in a very judicious and very effective fashion. And that's what makes the resiliency complete and useful for us.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that definition. So with that baseline, let's turn our attention to some of Hughes' ongoing work with the Protected Tactical Enterprise Service, or PTES program, because it's all about resiliency.
Yes.
I'm not sure if we can call it a quote unquote program of record yet. So I'm a bit confused on that point. But from the records I have seen, the contracts have been extended for Hughes via Boeing, right? Because Boeing is the prime
Yes.
contractor. Back in
Yes, correct.
2018, it brought Hughes in to build part of the Protected Tactical Enterprise Service. In plain terms, the goal was to keep military satellite communications working in a contested communications environment. Rajeev, it's been 7, maybe 8 years? I'm not really sure, but kind of right around there. What is PTES and what lessons are we learning in terms of making communications resilient?
Yes. Now, again, this is a very unique capability, and it takes resiliency to another notch because when we talked about diverse resources, right? And we talked about we can bring in different satellite or transport. There's another way to achieve resiliency, and that diversity is in the spectrum. So, what we do, if you look at PTES, that program, it focuses on a specific waveform. It's called Protected Tactical Waveform, PTW. It's a hopping waveform. So, what the waveform does, it
What's
would
a
transmit
hopping waveform? I mean, I'm thinking bunny rabbits.
that literally it's like bunny rabbit. The transmitter jumps from frequency to another frequency. So by the time enemy thinks that, oh, I should jam this frequency 1, the transmitter has already gone to frequency 2 in a random fashion. So that's exactly what PTW is. It hops around, but then you have to coordinate all the hopping because the receiver has to be synchronized so that the good guys, they can talk to each other. So that's what PTES is. PTES is the heart of protected enterprise. So we would have terminals. We have terminals, A3M. There are hubs. There are satellites. There are 2 satellite providers. Boeing is one of them. Boeing is our prime for PTES. So management system controller, the switching, the coordination, all that requires software and hardware to automate. And that's what PTES is. So PTES today is initially designed for WGS satellites, which are government satellites. PTES is also designed to run over commercial satellites and also MEO satellites. That's an objective as well.
What
So
is
which
that?
means
Explain that to me.
so
Mu?
so so we talked about Geo and Leo.
Oh,
There's
you said
also an intermediate,
Mio.
yeah, MEO,
Yes. Oh, I'm so
right?
sorry. Misunderstood what you said,
Yes.
sir.
So which means that the same approach, the same waveform, and the management systems and the hubs, we can also extend so that we can have even more satellites. So we benefit from frequency hopping in PTW. We can also benefit from resiliency because now we can run that waveform over different types of satellites. We can run it over commercial systems and government systems. So service providers could be different. So you see the big landscape we have created for these space assets or space systems, and all that diversity and redundancy and orchestration. It gives us a truly resilient system which can go through many different types of attacks and compromises and threats and so on. And again, as a country, I mean, we have the best space assets, comms, and so on. Historically, we have had very good systems to support strategic communications. What PTES also aims at is to provide this kind of sophisticated, robust capability to tactical users. So that's why we have PTES, protected tactical enterprise. So which means that it's not just a good service, we'll be able to give it to warfighters for many different kind of scenarios so that tactical users, they also can benefit. And we know, I mean, you mentioned different parts of the world, we are seeing lot of jamming, lot of adversities. So we have to improve the game because the world has changed. There are a lot of new enemies. They have not different kinds of capabilities, but with our innovation, we can keep making sure that we are ahead of them so that we can always communicate with our friendly forces and also our coalition partners. That's also an important part because PTES, the way it is designed, it can accommodate definitely American forces, but also in future, we should be able to have a coalition so that multiple friendly countries they can do the security objectives well with this PTES and the PTW waveform.
So that's really interesting. I have to say and point out that recently I had Air Marshal Godfrey on, who is actually in charge of wrangling our international partners to work with the Space Force, right? And that this contract, I believe, is with the Space Force. And I do remember that it was about, 11 months ago, that I believe the Space Force was very, very, very proud of the protected tactical waveform. And this was done, I believe, with 5 terminals and you said two satellites. But I hate to be so dull, maybe here. When I think of a waveform, I think of it being in a frequency, and maybe I'm thinking about it incorrectly. Okay, this is where I really invite you to correct how I am visualizing this, because when I think of a waveform, it's that blue squiggly or green squiggly line that goes across the screen, and that is a wave, right? Looks
You're
like a
absolutely
wave.
right.
You're going
Absolutely
surfing.
right. Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that you can make that waveform hop from frequency to frequency,
Yes.
and it will not lose its integrity, because that has been the issue before. Because if you're going on a different frequency, that would require you to use a different waveform to utilize that frequency, correct?
Yes. And also make sure, definitely integrity is very important. And it's also important to make sure that we do it so fast that the bad guys can't figure out where did the transmission go from one frequency to other frequency. Because remember, if they have jammer, if we are very slow in hopping, then they can jam, they can keep jamming. So fast hopping is very, very important.
Okay.
And that's what these waveforms provide. So this combination of different satellites and waveforms and fast orchestration, that keeps coming back, whether we do it for satellite hopping or frequency hopping or terminal hopping, we have to do it fast and in a robust fashion so that the good guys, they are in sync and the bad guys have no clue what is going on.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to turn your attention to something that I think you are very passionate about. And if we think about the bunny hop, this is kind of like the place where all the bunnies are kept, all the bunnies that we want to keep safe here, right? And that is something that is called ORAN, right? I know that you are passionate about this.
Yes.
And ORAN is an acronym for Open Radio Access Network.
Right.
Hughes has now built 3 of these.
Yes.
One at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island in Washington State, one at Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam in Hawaii, and the latest at Fort Bliss in Texas, which I believe includes an ORAN testing ground.
Yeah.
Right? You have said that ORAN has fundamentally changed how the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and the Department of State, how these departments think about acquiring connectivity. And you, as well as others, believe that the government should require Open RAN as a mandatory part of any connectivity solution. So let's be gentle. What is an open radio access network? Why does the DoD want it? Because it does. And how does this connect to space systems?
Yes. So again, this is another very important question, because we have to focus on both solving problems so that people can communicate, but also where the solutions come from. So you look at 4G, 5G, we have competition. There are other big countries, they are spending a lot of money and innovating as we do. So with ORAN, we saw an initiative across government and especially one company, EchoStar, which said that let's change the way we deploy 5G. Before Open RAN, you had to buy closed proprietary RANs from a couple of big vendors. And with Open RAN, you can use generic hardware like CPUs, literally Dell servers and HP servers, and you can run Open RAN software. So it's
So it's not
radioactive.
proprietary. So the proprietary
So proprietary part
isn't,
is
it
gone.
doesn't close you out,
Yes,
that this is
exactly.
basically that anybody who wants to play and actually meets the security requirements, right?
Yes,
Because this is
yes,
I know you want to create a zero trust environment that's keeping the bunnies safe.
yes.
That this you can be anybody, and that you don't have to just go through Hughes or go through Boeing or go through whomever. As long as you meet these requirements, you can play within
Exactly.
this yard.
And definitely there are companies, they have different styles. Hughes as a company strongly believes in modular open source, open system architecture, MOSA. So whatever solution we provide, we make sure that the interfaces are well defined and standards based. So ORAN, it took it to the next level because a complicated part of a cellular network, which is how you do radio access and radio networking, they opened it up. They defined many interfaces. So we could work with innovative companies right here in the US because they were Open RAN compliant. And we did that very well in Whidbey Island and Hawaii. And these are part of Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, JBPHH. So Whidbey Island is a naval air station, and there are dozens of growlers and P-8s. And we installed this Open RAN based private 5G network inside the hangars on the runway so that people can have a seamless, high connectivity, high data rate networking experience. The pilots, the workers, the technicians, the war fighters, everyone. So that was a game changer because we take connectivity for granted. And I'll share a simple story. So this was a pilot who shared that before they had 5G in Whidbey, our Open RAN based 5G, they used to go home so that they can update their tablet on home Wi-Fi,
Which is insecure.
which is insecure, but at least yes, you are right. And it is, and they have to drive. I mean, suppose it's secure and they have made sure they have the right service. They have to drive home and do this thing, as opposed to now they can do it right there on the base because the general purpose cellular coverage was not good. I have been to Whidbey Island multiple times, and it's a very unique location. And very first time, we just could not hold any Teams type session on general purpose connectivity. So we also benefited by deploying the network because we could do our job well. When we are there, we could talk to our colleagues and so on. So that worked out very well because not only 5G, we combined resilient SATCOM also in that offering. So we had OneWeb, Starlink, Jupiter Geo, which is from Hughes, fiber, couple of cellular, and what I described earlier, that if something goes wrong, it will immediately, very quickly switch to the next transport. So that's what we have there. And we tested it a lot more aggressively in Hawaii because there we went to a site, a US government site, where we had more flexibility in testing these things, resiliency. So it was a fun project also, the execution part. Because
Well,
between
yeah, because you
Whidbey
got
and
to go to Hawaii.
yes. And we also saw firsthand, and it was very sobering, we saw the buildings which were damaged during Pearl Harbor. And we saw, of course, the monuments and so on. So yeah, so Hawaii is a unique place. It brings a lot of things together, which we take for granted, right? I mean, that was a very important place from a defense perspective, but also what has happened there in the past. So very useful, lot of learning experience, especially for a company which is primarily commercial, which is a non-traditional defense contractor. But we learned a lot of useful lessons.
Tisk,
Yes,
non-traditional.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right. It's only been working with the government for ages, but I'll try and be gentle with you on that particular statement, sir.
So Laura, so that's the usual reaction we get. Come on, use a non-traditional. Because defense is a small group, but we are very focused. We select the right problem set which we can solve and provide a good solution.
So let me get you back on track and off of the wonderful plug that you have given your company, because at Fort Bliss, This is an ongoing thing. There is a project that is in the evaluation stage, and so far as I can tell, so it's been built out. But I'd like to make this project a little more tangible for listeners. What's being evaluated is a RAN intelligent controller, or RIC, I bet you probably call it, RIC. And the whole point is to automatically, through the use of artificial intelligence, which gets to the speed factor that you're talking about, being faster than the speed of humans, to keep mobile military command posts online and resistant. And I'd like to underline mobile military command posts, not stationary. So again, what does that mean in practice? Does that mean between the mobile command post and forward deployed troops? Does that mean from that mobile command post to a higher command or combatant command through satellites? And as part of your answer, could you also tell me when will you know the results of the evaluation?
Sure. And again, that's a question which spans multiple areas, right? And you said that, is it local or does it go beyond the confines of local resources and users and so on? So let me come back to Open RAN and RAN Intelligent Controller, Rick. So Open RAN has been such an important architecture because it not only opens up interfaces, it introduces the concept of RIC. So what RIC is, RIC has global visibility of what is happening inside a RAN. So RAN, like any network, you have packets, right? You have data packets, you process them. Some of the packets carry high priority data. Some of them are maybe best effort. On the other extreme, we have modems, we have transmitters. We take the packets, convert them into bits, and then they change the waveform so that that information can be sent to the receiver. And then on the other hand, the other side, they have their own transmitter and they have their own data which they are sending to us. So there are probably 7, 8 stages within a RAN where you process. You start with the energy, right? Which is the radio, the spectrum, and the power levels. And gradually you get bits out of it. You create packets. You check for errors. So all that requires different types of software and hardware. So RIC can make sure that can have modular functions so that if someone does not do good packet processing, I can bring in another vendor who has a better packet processor. And RIC will be able to orchestrate that or manage that. So what we talked very early, we talked about resiliency. We said that we can switch over. So that concept is same as RIC. So when we deployed, designed the Whidbey and Hawaii, so at that time, we did that design about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It was deployed about 3 years ago. So RIC has been evolving. And when you look at Fort Bliss, so Fort Bliss, the customer there is Army. And for Whidbey Island, the customer is US Navy. So they have slightly different priorities because we know that Navy, they go on big ships, both below water, above water. They have planes also. Army
They have SEALs too, though.
Yes, they do.
Just saying.
Yes. And so, but we do see those differences operationally, what it means with respect to how quickly this has to be solved, how many people will typically use. So you use the word mobile command post. That has been very important for Fort Bliss type environment. And we have seen that in other places also. So
it's got to be able to move. I mean, this has to be on wheels and it's going to be going through contested environments. Correct. And then maybe coming out of contested environments.
Yes.
That this is not a constant environment that you solve one time, you're one and done, but this is whatever that is, and it has to be able to handle that.
Yes. And I'll give you a very simple example. So RIC, for example, it can control an antenna which can look at maybe, let's say, 3 different directions. If people are trying to jam, then they should be able to see the antenna or the beam. But if RIC knows that someone is trying to jam, they can just move the beam automatically. So the jammer cannot see the beam, so they cannot jam. So that also is a part of RIC.
And it does this automatically.
Automatically.
Right?
That's the key
part.
Right,
so that the warfighter doesn't have to stop doing what's necessary for the mission, but they can just basically, how should I say, pick up the phone and just dial direct. And there's no thought. They don't have to worry about having to move things around or move the beam. So it saves them time so they can focus on
so that
their mission.
They can focus on the mission. So the networking, it is resilient. It has components such as RIC, orchestrators, which can look at what is happening, how to react to it. And this is not machine taking over the whole comms. So when we provide solution, we let the users decide where they want active human control. Maybe they don't want to do the switchover. So then we'll say, fine, it will ask you that, hey, based on what I know, the machine recommends this should be done, but it will wait for a human input, or we can set thresholds. So that is a very important part. I know that we didn't talk about AI, but we have to
we're
be
getting
very
there. We're getting there. You just hang on there a second.
How we have collaboration between machine and human, because that is also very important for commercial networks and also for military and government networks.
I think AI is going to become a big part of the coming question that I want to give to you, because AI does seem to be a through line through all of these different things that we have been talking about. And it would seem to me that this would not really be possible without AI or quote unquote machine learning. Right. Because for me, and I am coming from an outsider position here, when I look at the Protected Enterprise Service Program and then the ORAN contracts and the outcomes and the employment of artificial intelligence, it seems to me that there is a narrative arc building here that points to what may be bigger things, or maybe not. I could be wrong, which I really do invite you to correct me if I'm wrong. But just this last March, right, the Air Force Research Lab contracted Hughes to develop and build something called Starfish. Yet again, another acronym.
Yes.
All right, but this one stands for Space Technology Advanced Research Fast Tracking Innovative Software and Hardware. We are going to call this Starfish from now on. But the goal of this is to route data across both space networks and terrestrial networks, right?
Yes.
And that will include mobile networks.
That will include mobile.
As in things that are on the move. So when we just talked about those command posts being mobile or mobile, depending upon how you want to say the word, but moving, this applies to them as well, right? So it's using the same kind of AI-driven, software-defined orchestration that you've just been explaining. So from what I can see, this is going to involve government systems, commercial systems, and it can also mean allied space systems. And you are going to need to have zero trust in all this and have all this stuff baked in before something comes online and becomes available. Quite frankly, I have to say it seems really complicated. So, Rajeev, what are Hughes' actual deliverables for Starfish?
Yes. So very important area, because if you look at what happened in past 4-5 years, we have started seeing systems which have inter-satellite link, which means all the routing, all the orchestration we were doing on ground, now we can do in space also. In space, things move fast, thousands of miles an hour. So we have to be even faster. We also have to be secure and interoperable at the same time. So this combination of more things, fast moving, security, efficiency, high data rates, we need to make decisions very fast, even faster compared to when we just had terrestrial nodes in the solution space. So we, as a company, have done these things for the commercial. So our engagement for an agency such as AFRL, Space Force, so we do both kinds of work. So we develop products, we develop custom software, hardware. We also do studies, architectural analysis, demonstrations, so that we can show that how these things would operate if we have this kind of automation. And as I said earlier, that for the Whidbey Island, we had that fast orchestration. And again, it was ground-based because we were talking about a Starlink and OneWeb and Geo all sitting on ground orchestration, but we projected that. And you also mentioned AI. AI is a great tool in a variety of ways. Think of using AI, the creative AI, to simulate bad guys. Because remember, when we talk about AI, we talk about hallucinations. So that is the ultimate form of creativity. So that's a great way to use AI, is to just put them, let them create attack vectors, let them throw darts and whatever they can throw at the system, at scenarios, so that we can be prepared for the real world. So that would be, in my opinion, I think a great way to fully benefit from AI. We, of course, benefit from AI in orchestration also. We have to be careful. We have to create guardrails. We have to create the check and balance so that the human and machine balance is well preserved. But for creating threats, attacks, I think that's a great way to leverage AI today. So that also is an area which is equally important, because it's not just good to have solution. We have to validate solutions. We have to make sure when the bad day comes, these solutions would survive and they will protect the network, and they'll be able to take data not just on ground, but also in space.
So is this AI red teaming for
that's a
right?
Yes.
AI red teaming.
Yeah.
Is this AI red teaming part of the Starfish deliverable?
So
or are you just doing it for fun?
No, I'm giving you an example, right? So I talked to you about a study, right? So in a study, you explore that what is possible. So in a study, you describe that this is our starting point, this is the foundation, these kinds of tools have high TRL, and then you start painting what else could be done.
So Rajeev, last question.
Sure.
Short and sweet. When Hughes is deciding what direction it wants to go in next in terms of achieving that resiliency and being ahead of the curve, right? What does Hughes do in terms of like deciding what to buy or build to strengthen resilient communications? Are they things, and I'm talking about technology, what bleeding edge technology, and this is really for you because you have been in this for a long time. What bleeding edge technology are you finding really exciting to make communications waveforms even more resilient?
So short answer is AI. There's no other technology which is more relevant compared to AI for every walk of life, whether it's research, whether it's networking, whether it's creating more efficient cars, whether it's solving societal problems, but it's always the collaboration between human and machine. I came to US long time ago to do graduate work in AI in early 80s. And AI was still developing at that time. And my professor rightly advised that pick some other field. So I'm personally very pleased that AI has reached a stage where it has a lot of potential. And in many areas, it's already successful, but we cannot ignore AI. We cannot run away from AI. We also cannot assume that AI is the magic wand which will solve all problems. But AI is a very, very powerful tool, and we use it wisely. It's just like fire. We use it wisely, it cooks food. We don't use it wisely, it can do damage. So AI is the tool which can help us, just like fire.
Rajeev, thank you so much for making the time to come on the podcast.
Thank you, Laura. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
That's it for this week. For your daily dose of award-winning defense coverage, listen to the Defense and Aerospace Report with Vago Muradian. And for the maritime domain, listen to Cavis Ships with Chris Cavis and Chris Cervello. And get your air domain news and analysis from the Air Power Podcast with JJ Gertler and Vago Muradian. I'm Laura Winter. Thank you for listening.